Taken 2. Bryan Mills faces a new threat with Albanians. He faces Albanian gangsters. In Taken 2, a few weeks after Taken 1, everyone's going happy. He's being overprotective of his daughter again. Not that much anymore since the first film. Their daughter, Kim and Lenore are getting very close with him. So then, pretty much after her husband cancels their trip to China, he takes them to a trip somewhere, and then meanwhile after that, Albanian gangsters are having a funeral that Bryan Mills killed them all. So then he plans revenge. He plans revenge on him, and he plans revenge, but also trying to get as close to him. Basically, Taken 2 was actually better than the first one. Taken 2 has more action, and one more thing. They take him and they take Lenora, but he escapes, and then Lenora, basically the rest of the movie, they have to fly Lenora, and Kim is not being the kidnapped. Is not being the kidnapper this time. She's not being kidnapped. This time, I think her role in this film is better. She follows her father's every orders. She throws grenades. She's running on rooftops. It's amazing. I think Taken 2 is amazing, and I think the action sequences in the movie has to be fantastic. And I recommend Taken 2 for anyone who's been not seen Taken 1, because it doesn't really matter if you see Taken 1 or not. They kind of brief you, in some flashbacks they tell you. But let me just tell you. Basically, in the first film, Bryan Mills' daughter goes to Paris. She was kidnapped, and then Bryan has to get her back, and he kills all these Albanian sex offenders, and pretty much like that. And then he saves her daughter. It's flipped around this time. He has to save himself. He has to protect Lenora and Kim, and also himself from all the gangsters trying to kill him. Basically, I think Taken 2 was more interesting enough that Taken 1 was alright, but Taken 2 was actually interesting. I think the story was probably better. I think the action in this movie is pretty awesome, and I think at the end of the movie, when he says I've killed everyone because they took my daughter, but he doesn't really care. He only wants revenge. But then he gives him the chance. I'll let you live, and I'll drop my gun down. I'll drop my gun down, and then I'll never see you again. So then he picks up the gun, and then there's no bullet in there, and then Bryan shoots him. So basically, pretty much, I think that was a nice thing to do, but in the end, they all died. And anyway, pretty much, I think for the casting in this movie, well, we do have people that are back from Taken 1, a few people, and also I think Liam Neeson in this movie was better, and Liam Neeson was probably better than Taken 2 than Taken 1. Also, I think everybody's characters were fit this time. I think Kim's role as a character in this movie is better than the first one, and I think the roles of Lenora and also Bryan are well effective in this one, and I think Lenora and Bryan are gonna get close again, get back together, and then also Kim has a boyfriend, pretty much. There's all this amazing stuff, and I think Taken 2 is probably one of the best movies I've ever seen in the fall so far, besides Skyfall coming next month, and also the following after that. Well, basically, a lot of new movies coming this fall, but I recommend Taken 2. Taken 2 it's a really interesting story. Also, a very action-packed movie, and it's also very some dramatic moments too. And what else was I gonna say? I think Taken 2 was probably one of my favorite movies right now, and guess what, guys? There's not gonna be a Taken 3. it makes sense. I think they've run out of ideas. It makes sense though. Well, Liam Neeson said that himself. Well, if they got any more ideas, I would love to see in Taken 3 because all these characters are interesting. Bryan, Miller, Lenore, and Kim. I think Kim evolved as a character in this movie, and I think Bryan also Bryan did not evolve. I think Kim probably evolved since all the dramatic moments happened in the first film. I think she was more extra cautious this time. That her father was telling her what to do, and she did everything what he said, and then pretty much it's kind of like back and forth, and I really liked it. I think Taken 2 more character character development than the first one. Um, I think the villains were in this movie were probably pretty fierce, were pretty interesting, but not interesting. It's kind of like, hey, let's have revenge let's take revenge on the guy who killed our sex offenders. So basically sex offenders like kind of like fathers and husbands pretty much, and then and sons. So basically the villain says we're gonna get revenge on him and we're gonna take him out, but that fails anyway. Bryan always survives, and I think Taken 2 was probably better than Taken 1. Better than Taken 1. Okay, this is my review of Taken 2, and I give it a 5 out of 5. 1, I give it a 5 out of 5 for its amazing story, for better character development, and also for the crazy action sequences. Goodbye, and I hope you enjoy my review of Taken